Okay, so few things here. I'm wearing a sweater, and the reason for that is it's 38 degrees in my garage. It's freezing, and I can literally see my breath. So, got a sweater on. My belt, my lifting belt, I wear really high. And the reason for that is I have a hernia, and for some reason, wearing my belt high makes it where the hernia doesn't hurt. I don't know why. It just works out that way. If I wear the belt low, where I usually like to wear my belt, the I I can't do it. Actually, it hurts. My umbilical hernia, I guess, will hurt too much where I can't lift the weight. So I have the belt high. I was feeling pretty good here. I felt like I was hitting the right motion here with my squat. It's kind of interesting because what I do is I try to put the weight on my back. I feel like if I put the weight on my back, I can lift anything. And so I just put the weight on my back by putting my hips back. And then I try to drop down, and I really try to drive up with my legs. I don't like the way it feels when I'm lifting the weight back up with my back. I don't know how to explain it exactly. There's like this sweet spot where, I drive the weight up with my legs and my hips, but the weight is on my back, if that makes sense. It's not like a super upright lift. And the weight was popping up really easy. But I think because it's so cold and because the belt is so high on my stomach, I was feeling a little tweak in my lower back. So I didn't go for the 10 reps that I was going to go for. I wanted to do 10 reps. Feel strong enough to do 10 reps. But I just did 6. And that's something I think I talked about in the last video I did, my last leg workout. I've done 2 of them this year now. I did the safety squat bar, same weight, 410 for 6. And I felt like I could have done 10. But, I just kept it in reserve, and I am training for a bench press competition. That's what I'm doing. I want to do an official 500-pound bench pressing competition. That's my goal. That's what I'm training for. So there's no reason to really push the squat, or even just the other, training days. I have a squat day, leg day, which I'm doing here. And I do think it helps the bench press to train your other body parts, but I don't think I need to push them really hard. So I might even back off more than this. I was doing like a 20 rep squat workout, and it was going really great. So I might go back to that. I might drop down to 3 plates and do 20 reps, and then just maybe start going heavier for 20 reps. We'll see. I'm up to adjust it, and I don't want to hurt myself though in the squat when I'm training for a bench press competition. And I might back off as well on my other workouts. I didn't push my shoulders and arms really hard at all. I'm going nice and light there, and then my back, I'm going light, but I haven't trained my back in like over a year. So I was looking at my workout that I did for back, and I think I could definitely improve my form. So I might back off even more than I'm already backing off, because why not, I want to focus a little bit on bodybuilding on those days and not so much how much I'm lifting. So I'll probably back it off and try to sharpen up the form a little bit. And the day that I want to push myself is bench day. So that's going to be tomorrow. I think that's enough talking about that. That's a lot of talking about that I just did. What I really want to talk about is I want to talk about two things. I want to talk about my friend, Will Dinwiddie. I put a little clip at the end of this of him talking. I want to, talk a little bit about Will, and I also want to just tie Will into a story in the Bible. The story of Moses specifically. And Moses was a shepherd, and Moses heard from the Lord. The Lord spoke to Moses from a burning bush. The angel of the Lord spoke from a burning bush, and Moses was looking at this burning bush, and he was noticing that the bush was burning, but it wasn't being consumed. So he went to go investigate. He was like, why is this bush burning, but it's not being consumed? And when he went over to it, the Lord spoke to him and told him that he was the Lord. And Moses knew. And I like to say this because if the Lord speaks to you, you're going to know that it's the Lord. Oh, here's Sean Frankel, just so you know. That's Sean Frankel, greatest powerlifter of all time. Put a little bit of clips in here of him. I wanted to include some of Will, but I actually didn't have them, so I'd have to get them. But you can look up Will Dinwiddie, squats 225 for 100 reps. The only person I've ever seen do that. Or 315 for 50. He deadlifted 365 for 50. He has some amazing lifts that he's done. So the Lord speaks to Moses, though, from this burning bush. Oh, and then here's some clips of me squatting. And this is relevant. I injured myself in a strongman competition, and I couldn't squat for 7 years until I rehabilitated my hips. And I really messed myself up in this strongman competition, my body. And occasionally I would be able to squat, though. And I could squat. If I could squat on a certain day, I could squat 500 pounds. And I think I did 500 pounds in some of these clips. And that's about where my squat was at. I could do 405 for 6 reps. And that's exactly where I'm at right now. I can always just do that without training. I can squat 405 for 6 and squat 500 pounds without training. And that's where I'm at right now. I haven't trained, but I could squat 405 for 6. I'm sure I can squat 500. I haven't done that recently, but I'm sure I could do that right now. And I'd like to push that up a lot higher, but because of that injury, I've just had a lot of issues with squatting. That's the one lift for me. And it's interesting. I put a clip of Sean Frankel in here. He's squatted over 1,000 pounds before, 1,080, I think, in competition. I think he's done 1,100 in the gym. And then Will has done the most reps of anyone I've ever known, 225 for 100 reps. And again, that's relevant to this story about Moses, because Moses hears from the Lord, and it's very important to me to say this, that when the Lord speaks to you, you'll know it's the Lord, right? You're not going to question, is that the Lord that spoke to me? Nope, that was definitely the Lord that spoke to you, right? You're going to know because it's the Lord speaking to you, right? And the Lord spoke to Moses from a burning bush and told him to go tell the Israelites, right? He was going to tell the Israelites that the Lord has seen their suffering and the Lord is going to set them free from the Egyptians that were enslaving them. And Moses was going to be the one to go tell the Egyptians to let his people go. Let my people go. That was the instruction of the Lord, to go tell Pharaoh to let my people go. God's people, right? The chosen people of the Lord. the people of Israel, the children of Abraham, right? And this is the God of Abraham speaking. And so when the Lord tells Moses to do this, it's really interesting because Moses asks the Lord, what if they don't believe me? What if they don't believe? Well, first he says, if they ask what your name is, what do I tell them? And the Lord says, tell them that I am told you. I am. And it's really interesting because thousands of years later, they killed Jesus for saying this, right? Because Jesus said that he knew Abraham, and they said, you're only 33 years old or whatever. How could you know Abraham? And he said, before Abraham was, I am. And they knew what Jesus meant when he said that. He was saying that he was God, right? I am is his name, the name of God. And Jesus said, I am. And so, thousands of years before, Jesus spoke to Moses through a burning bush and told him, I see your affliction. I see the affliction of your people, and I'm going to set you free. And I want you to go tell your people this. And Moses said, well, what if they don't believe me? Right? Well, first he said, what's your name? I am. And he says, but what if they don't believe me? And God says, pick up your staff, or rather throw your staff on the ground. What is that in your hand? A staff? Because he's a shepherd, right? Throw the staff on the ground. And he throws the staff on the ground, and it turns into a snake, right? Moses takes his staff, which he walks with, which he has dominion over, which he has, right? Which actually even helps him walk. And he throws it on the ground, and it turns into a snake. And then Moses is afraid of the snake, right? But the Lord says, pick it up by the tail, grab it by the tail and pick it back up. And he picks it back up, and it turns back into a staff for him, right? What does this mean? What does this sign mean? His staff turning into a snake. Well, in the Bible, the snake represents Satan, right? And Satan is the great deceiver. Satan is the great liar. And Satan is the voice that opposes the voice of the Lord, right? So the Lord spoke to Moses, and Moses knew it was the Lord, right? The Lord also spoke to Adam in the garden, right? And Adam knew it was the Lord speaking to him. And then came the serpent, and the serpent deceived Eve, and Adam followed along with Eve, right? And was deceived by the liar. And that brought death, right? When the serpent deceived Adam and Eve in the garden, death came, pain came, suffering came, fear came, everything bad came from the serpent, right? Pain, suffering, death, torment, hell. Hell came from the serpent, right? And the Lord tells Moses, throw that staff that you have dominion over, that you have control over, that's your staff, that you own it, you possess it, throw it on the ground, and it turns into a snake. And he is afraid of it, but the Lord says, pick it back up by the tail. He picks it back up, it turns back into a staff, right? And this is the Lord saying, this is a sign that you have dominion over pain and suffering, torment and death. Moses, this is a sign that I, the Lord God, have given you power over the serpent, over the snake, over the liar, over the false voice, the false identity of Satan. I've given you power over it. You have power through me over Satan. You control him. And you're going to show these people this, right? You're going to show the Pharaoh this. You're going to show, and he does. He goes and throws the staff down in front of the Pharaoh when he says, let my people go. And his staff turns into a snake. And then Pharaoh gets some of his wizards or whatever, and they do the same thing. They throw their staffs down and they turn into snakes. But Moses' snakes eat those snakes, right? And he's saying, I have power over this world, over you, Pharaoh. And Pharaoh is the ruler of the world. He's the king. He's the leader. They considered him a god, right? He was considered a god. But that display right there was God saying through Moses, I have power over this world, over you. That's what that meant, right? I have power over pain and suffering and death and torture and all of these things. And here is Pharaoh enslaving Moses' people. And Moses is coming to say, let my people go. And now how is this relevant to this workout, to all these clips of squatting and Will Dinwiddie, who I brought up, right? The Ultra Beast, my buddy. Will, for one, is somebody who has done things that I've never seen anyone else do. Like I mentioned before, he squatted 225 for 100 unbroken reps. And he told me when he did it, he could actually feel the fat sizzling and cooking off of his face because his metabolism was firing off so hard, right? He squatted 315 for 50 reps. You could look that up on YouTube. Will Dinwiddie squats 315 for 50 reps. He told me he did it for 2 sets of 35 before that. He just couldn't finish it. He couldn't do the 50. So he did 2 sets of 35. He went to a work meeting, came back and did the 50 reps on his third set, his third try, because he had to do it. He squatted 405 for 20 a bunch of times. He squatted 455 for 20. He said that's the hardest set he ever did in his life, was the 455 for 20. And then he's done 500 for 10 like countless times. And he squatted, I think he squatted 700 is his best, I believe. Will, put it in the comments, bro. I'm going to send this to Will to listen to. Because Will's a big inspiration for this video that I'm making right now, you know, because it's not about the weights, it's about the people. And Will is a person that the Lord has brought into my life, that I really care about. He's a great friend of mine. And I really appreciate the things he's done. I recognize what he's done. And what he has done is he's taken dominion over pain and suffering, right? And torment, right? And he's displayed that in the gym. I've seen it. And that comes from the soul, right? And that comes from the soul that is driven by the voice that you listen to, right? And Will said he couldn't not do it. The things that he did, he had to do. He had to. It was just in him. A voice inside of him told him and drove him and said, you must do this, right? You must take dominion over your body, over pain, over suffering. He was an Army Ranger to begin with. Will was an Army Ranger. And when he got out of the Army, he started competing in bodybuilding, I believe, first, and competed a bunch of times, but it's very subjective. It's not objective, right? You don't like lift more weight than somebody to win. And so he felt like he got some bad placings that he didn't deserve and decided to go into strength sports. And he competed in powerlifting, totaled elite in powerlifting, and then really did mostly strongman and arm wrestling. He also was a cage fighter. He also was an ultra marathon runner, and who knows what else Will has done. But he definitely has power over the serpent.
This is a response to a question I was asked by my good friend Scott Davenport. Why even bodybuild if you know you don't have the genetics to be a champion or to be the best? If you know you're not going to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, what's the point of doing it? Or maybe if you can't compete anymore, what's the point of continuing to do it? And I guess the reason why I continue to do it is for the same reason I started, because I love knowing that there's something that I have control over, that I can dictate through my efforts what the result is going to be. So I still enjoy knowing that I still have the power to remain as strong or as muscular as I can be, even as I age. And now that I'm out of my peak years, my strongest years are now behind me, I think, I thought that too. What's the point of continuing to lift? I have to have a new reason, since it's no longer involving preparing for a contest. And the reason was, even in the very beginning, even though I started competing when I was 16, that's not what I got into lifting weights for. I got into lifting weights because I wanted to be bigger and stronger, but I also knew that I felt that from the very first time I lifted, I knew that this was something that I had control over. And the more effort I put into it, the better rewards that I got. So, and that still holds true to this day. So even though I'm not competing in strongman, I'm not, preparing for an arm wrestling tournament or things like that, I still lift really hard like I did back then. I just don't compete anymore. So, and my rep ranges have changed. So I'm lifting really hard for 10 to 20 reps. I don't lift really hard for 1 to 5 anymore. That my body just can't take that. So 10 to 20 reps, but I'm still going as hard as I can. So I'm still, if you were to try to imagine what you can do for 20 reps regularly all year long and not just building up to it, that gives me reason to still go hard and try to be as strong as I can, because I'm now doing it in a way that isn't as deteriorating to my body as what the heavier stuff does. But the goal is to be as strong as I can just for life, just to handle the pressures of life, and also to be good for my job. I still want to be really strong, physically able to do the work that I do. And I have other goals that are more like, I don't know, narcissistic maybe. I want to be the buff dad. I want to be whatever school my daughter's going to, I want to be the strongest dad out of all the dads, So, and that to include college. So it gives me a reason to keep trying to stay as strong as I can, and to stay training regularly, to stay disciplined, because, I have my own personal reasons why now I'm doing what I'm doing, as far as what I'm using weightlifting to help me accomplish with my body and my life. And everybody's reasons are different, so, but it's still bodybuilding. I don't compete as a bodybuilder on stage or anything like that, but I'm still building my body, so I have specific cardiovascular numbers I want to maintain. You know, being able to run 10 miles if I need to or want to. You know, certain amount of miles I put in every week, you know, certain times. You know, creating new minimum standards for yourself, new maximum standards, you know, like constantly evolving, you know, like, and you're going to use bodybuilding to help you evolve, because when you're in control of your body, it helps you be more in control of your emotions and your mind, which you can then do that stuff in other parts of your life, you know. So you're more controlled at work, or you're more controlled with your loved ones, you know, and how you respond to something that may not be favorable to hear, or something like that, you know, like it helps you be better at everything. And so why would I discontinue the one thing that I know for a fact makes things better? You know, I won't, you know. So this will be something I do till I die, basically, or unless I become crippled or something awful like that that would keep me from doing it. But you know, doing it for as long as you can, and as strong as you can. So not ever letting up, just changing, you know. The intensity should always be at a high level, no matter what your age. Just what you're able to do at that point has to change, you know. So keep the intensity high, you know, evolve your training to match your age and your joints, or and your goals, basically. Um, and uh, and just keep training. There's no reason to ever stop. And that's it, man.